Hi all, welcome back to K Club. This is week 5, and today I will be covering candidate information and goals for career development, candidate background, and career goals and objectives. So these two sections, candidate background and career goals and objectives, are part of the candidate information and goals for career development overarching section. And then we'll talk about homework action items. So again, here are our K application sections. Today we're focusing on career instead of research. So we'll be going over the first part of the 6-page document, candidate information and goals for career development. Let's get started. So for this grant writing process, you are responsible for your own success. There are a lot of documents you need to put together for this grant. You and not your mentors will need to keep track of all of them. So send reminders to people if you need things from them. You're the prefrontal cortex of this whole grant process. So let's go over the candidate info and goals for career development. This overarching section is 6 pages total, but again, don't worry about page limits at this time. In future lectures, I'll remind you that you need to cut words to get things down to a certain page limit. So the first subsection in here is candidate background. So where did you come from and where do you want to go? The next section is career goals and objectives. So this is where you address new knowledge that you'll gain from this K award. Address what skills in communication, leadership, lab management, grant writing, research, and productivity you will learn. And last but not least, next week we'll be going over this in more detail, but the career development training plan. So here's where you give details on what specific activities you will do and when you're going to achieve your goals listed above in career goals and objectives. And you're going to present a timeline for goal completion for all of your training. So just like in your approach section you did for your research strategy, you had a 5-year timeline in terms of research. Now you're going to have a 5-year timeline in terms of training goals. So in this process, you're setting short and long-term goals. There are certain things to keep in mind when setting up these goals in your K. And you want your goals to be SMART. So you want them to be specific, goals stating exactly what you aim to accomplish, who, what, where, when, why. So I will defend my Ph.D. thesis in 2021. Obviously, you all have your Ph.D. already, but that's just an example. You want measurable goals. So goals in which progress can be objectively measured or evaluated on a daily basis. So for example, every 3 months, I will discuss the progress with my mentors and ask for feedback. You want achievable goals. So goals which are realistic. So you're not going to say that within the 2 years of your K99 that you're going to write an R01 and be able to resubmit it. That is just not realistic at all. So you want to set achievable goals that your mentor and co-mentors think are reasonable and that other people have actually attained in the past. You want relevant goals, so goals which fit your long-term objectives. So if you are aiming to pursue a career in academia, you need to take steps to get a job in academia as an assistant professor. You also want time-bound goals, so goals which have clear checkpoints. So in your 5-year timeline that you're going to have in your career development section, you need to set certain time limits where your mentor will check in and make sure that you've achieved those goals. We'll get into this in the next few sections. First, we're going to cover candidate background. So what is your past, what is your present situation, and what do you want for your future? For this section, first you're going to cover your past. So you're going to describe your past research interests and experience. And if there are consistent themes or issues that have guided previous work in your research, then make these clear. Alternatively, if your work has changed direction, indicate the reasons for the change. For present and future, you're going to describe your potential to develop into a successful independent investigator. You're going to explain your strengths and skills and what new skills you are committed to learn. How does this K grant let you use the skills you have already learned and clearly say what these skills are, and help you develop new skills and clearly say what those are or going to be, to enhance your research career. Let's do an example that I came up with based on a candidate background. Let's say my research focuses mainly on cannabis. So let's say I'm writing a K99 R00, and my K99 is going to be secondary fMRI data analysis on stress tests in chronic cannabis use disorder. For my R00, I want to do new EEG data collection and analysis on stress tests in young adult cannabis users. So K99, I'm focusing on a project with chronic using one neuroimaging method in chronic users. Then for R00, let's say I want to branch out into young adult users and I want to use a different neuroimaging methodology. So let's cover an example of my past. My paragraph 1 theme might be using EEG to understand clinical psychology. So I have training in EEG to understand various types of psychopathology: bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety, and schizophrenia, and emotional processing. So that was my undergrad and grad school years. For my undergrad education, I got a BS in psychology at UC San Diego, and I did an honors project on P50 suppression and bipolar disorder and schizophrenia with Brett Clements. So I learned EEG, statistics, MATLAB, and clinical interviewing in that position. Then after I got my BS, I was chief research assistant at the Scripps Research Institute, and I trained and supervised other RAs on EEG P300 studies with John Polich. So again, I'm setting up my background in EEG experience in clinical populations. In graduate school, I got my master's and Ph.D. in clinical psychology from University of Illinois, and I earned a minor in neuroscience. I did EEG alpha band and P300 studies about anger, depression, and anxiety with Greg Milliger and Wendy Heller. And I also taught abnormal psychology and programmed in Fortran and MATLAB. So again, I have more EEG experience that I'm setting up here, programming experience, clinical psychology experience. I did 2 postdocs. So my first postdoc position was doing EEG alpha band studies and depression with John Allen at the University of Arizona. So here I wrote papers, I programmed in MATLAB, I supervised RAs. So I'm setting up my mentoring experience, programming experience, and reinforcing my EEG experience. My paragraph 2 theme will be using fMRI to understand emotion and addiction, mostly stimulant addiction, so cocaine, amphetamines. So in graduate school, I ran fMRI participants at the University of Illinois. I learned Unix and analyzed fMRI data using FSL, and I participated in weekly neuroscience seminars and took fMRI and EEG classes. So this was with under the supervision of Greg Miller and Wendy Heller again, but I'm setting up my experience with fMRI data analysis. In my second postdoc position, I learned to run the fMRI scanner for multiple studies, and I supervised RA clinical and research training and recruitment, learned AFNI, another software program, and taught other postdocs AFNI and paper writing, working with Martin Paulus at UC San Diego. So again, I'm setting up my fMRI experience and my mentoring experience, as well as programming and data analysis experience. It is important for me to address why the switch to addiction. So before, I wasn't studying addiction in grad school or during undergrad, but I had a career opportunity after the first postdoc money ended, and addiction is often comorbid with depression and anxiety disorders, and users often present with emotional problems, so I saw these illnesses as connected. Now let's go to paragraph 3, my present and future. So I'm responsible, detail-oriented, organized, and motivated to work through challenges, particularly programming challenges I had throughout grad school and my first postdoc. The skills I have will be helpful for K99 and R00 are EEG fMRI data collection and analysis, programming, and paper writing. The new skills I want to develop for an EEG addiction project in my R00 phase. So I have experience collecting and analyzing other people's studies, but this grant will be the first time I have designed and implemented a study based on my own research ideas. I need to learn how to draft an IRB proposal, set up my own clinical EEG lab from scratch and develop training protocols, pilot test new paradigms, and learn new software for complex data processing and analysis. So learning how to use Brain Vision Analyzer and RStudio. I also want to learn EEG time frequency analysis, source localization, and linear mixed models in terms of stats. I have a fourth paragraph about my present and future. So you want to outline how does this grant let you use the skills you have already learned, and clearly say what those are, to help you develop new skills, and clearly say what those are, to enhance your research career. So I've already learned the skills of EEG fMRI principles, data collection, and analysis. I have already learned the skills of brain mechanisms involved in addiction. I've learned how to program and write papers. But I want to learn new research, communication, leadership, lab management, and grant writing skills. So I want to become an assistant professor, setting up my own lab and training my own staff. I want to design my own study. I want to focus on young adult development of cannabis use disorder as opposed to chronic stimulant use or chronic drug use. I want to learn new stats and innovative EEG analysis techniques. I want to obtain pilot data for a future R-level grant, say an R01. I want to actually be successful in submitting an R01 grant application by the end of this 5-year K. So now we're going to move on to career goals and objectives. So you have your education, training, and research up until now, and that should lead you into your K99 short-term research and career goals. So you want to have at least one research and one career goal for K99. Then that will lead you to your R00 short-term research and career goals. Again, you want to have at least one research and one career goal for the R00 phase. Then that should all set you up for your long-term research and career goals that you will mention in this section. So for K99 goals, you need to justify why you need more mentoring. If you're able to accomplish K99 goals already, it's unclear why you aren't already applying for, say, an R21 grant. So for R00 goals, you want to justify how you will separate scientifically from your mentor. So NIH doesn't want to fund a K for you to do the exact same work as your mentor. You want to differentiate yourself somehow. So for career goals and objectives, you could break this down into 3 paragraphs. Again, go with what your primary mentor suggests, but here's just an overview of what you need to include. So for paragraph 1, describe your short-term K99 phase, R00 phase, research and career goals. So obviously start with K99 first. And then go to R00. Explain how these short-term goals logically follow from your past research and training experience. And then describe your long-term research and career goals and explain how the short-term goals for K99 and R00 will help you achieve these goals. For paragraph 2, you need to justify that you need more mentorship. So you need to justify having a K99 phase to become an independent investigator. Explain what kind of mentorship you need to meet goals in paragraph 1. State that you have already received training or that you will participate in these courses during your K. Research methods, ethics, and statistics. Any other classes related to research interests, so developmental, clinical, abnormal psychology, or any sort of methods classes. So advanced statistics, AFNI bootcamp, programming courses, etc. For paragraph 3, you need to describe how you plan to separate scientifically from your primary mentor and advance to research independence. So let's go through an example of paragraphs 1 through 3. So I already gave you an example about my background and where I want to go. So now for this section, for my short-term goals, for K99 research, I want to develop new knowledge. So I want to understand the neuroimaging literature on cannabis and stress. For K99 training, I want to build communication and time management skills and obtain an assistant professor position. For R00 research, I want to set up my own lab, plan and carry out novel EEG stress studies in cannabis users to develop new knowledge and research skills, to obtain R01 pilot data and submit an R01 application. For R00 training, I want to build lab management and leadership skills and enhance my grant writing skills. Next, I need to explain how these short-term goals logically follow from my past research and training experience. So I want to build on my EEG fMRI skills and clinical psychology background to gain insight into cannabis stress brain responses across the lifespan. I'm going to next describe my long-term research and career goals and explain how the short-term goals will help me achieve those. So my long-term research goal is to understand markers of cannabis addiction that will enable me to develop novel brain-based screening tools and interventions within an addiction clinic setting. My long-term career goals are to complete the R00 study and achieve teaching, grant, and lab experience to set me on my way to eventually be a full professor with R01 funding, training the next generation of neuroscientists. So this is all paragraph 1. Now let's move on to paragraph 2. So I need to justify that I need more mentorship. I need the K99 phase to become an independent investigator. So Martin Paulus, my primary mentor, who is really good at getting grants, is an expert on stimulant addiction and fMRI, but I want to focus my career on cannabis addiction across the lifespan using EEG. Susan Tapert, who will be a co-mentor on this project, is an expert on cannabis in adolescents. She's great at getting grants, and she's a clinical training coordinator. So she will help me separate from Martin Paulus and gain my own research independence. And then third, I have Sally Sue, who's a co-mentor, and she is an expert on stress and aging, as well as EEG. So, and again, Sally Sue will help me gain research independence from my primary mentor. Explain what kind of mentorship I need to meet my goals in paragraph 1. I need knowledge of cannabis use and addiction across the lifespan. I need to understand important issues involved in adolescence and aging research. And Dr. Tapert and Dr. Sue can both help me with this. I need to understand basic EEG lab setup and advanced EEG analytics techniques. I need to enhance my communication, time management, and leadership skills to succeed as an assistant professor. So classes I have taken or will take during the award period, I've already completed research methods, study design, and basic stats classes in grad school. I will take another ethics class, advanced stats, psychology of aging, and developmental psychology classes to round out my training. I will take an NIH R01 grant writing seminar, a seminar on how to be an effective teacher, an addiction seminar, and diversity and cultural competence workshops. Let's move on to paragraph 3. So I need to describe how I plan to separate scientifically from my primary mentor and advance to research independence. So my primary mentor's research focus is fMRI and stimulant addiction. My research focus will transition to EEG and cannabis addiction development across the lifespan, focusing on interactions between amount of drug use and stress. Having a mentorship team with the expertise of my co-mentors who focus on adolescence and stress and aging will help me develop independence separate from my primary mentor. I know it's a lot to figure out. Remember that it's just a first draft of these sections. Treat yourself and take breaks. The style you present the info can vary as long as you include all the necessary content. So reviewers on your grant are going to be looking to check off boxes that you covered at least one research and at least one career goal for K99 and R00 phases. So make sure you cover that stuff. You need to cover the research independence portion as well. So your homework for this week is to revise your approach section based on your primary mentor feedback. Then write drafts of your candidate background and career goals and objectives and get feedback from your primary mentor. Thanks and have a great day.